All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneurship 101. We're actually recording live on Entre for the first time, but we're just a weekly podcast from the Abington Launchbox. I'm Alex Angermeyer, the Launchbox amplifier and producer, and joining with me today is my co-host Peter. Peter, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for asking, and thanks for producing another episode, and thanks for getting us to try some new things where we're pioneering this as a live podcast that we're doing weekly on the Entra social media platform. You can check that out. Find us there. We're going to be doing this on Fridays for at least a few foreseeable future to see if this might open up a new platform for us. So we're going to record this and we're going to still post it. And if you're listening to it, my guess is you found it that way. But if you want, you can join us on Entra in the future, join in on the conversation, and maybe even contribute. So maybe you give your opinion, maybe you create the next topic that we talk about. And with that, let's get started. Topic number one. Alex, what do you got on tap for us today?
Yeah, we just have a few topics today, and the catch is that we only have 101 seconds to respond to each topic. But I'm going to give you the first topic here. So this comes with any business or venture. What questions should you ask your potential customers? I mean, there's those why questions that you have to dive down to and go in depth with, and even before that, how can you actually find those potential customers or channels to ask these questions to?
A good question. So one of the things that we run at the Launchbox pretty much across the state are some programs like Idea Test Lab, which is really about customer discovery. And I think that's what your question is getting into here, Alex, which is how do you find those customers? And when you do find a potential customer, what do you ask? So I'm going to approach this from a couple of different directions. So how do you find those potential customers? I think you find them by finding a bunch of people that are willing to talk to you. Some of them will be your potential customers. Most of them probably will not be your potential customers. I think that's actually a good thing, is to find out who's not in the potential customer category. But you can't get there unless you start asking lots of people questions. Now, the second part of your question, I think, was also a really valid, viable question that we should be asking, which is, what do you ask people so that you get actionable, valid information back that you can do something to guide your business decision-making process? That's probably a bit more complicated. So part one, ask people. If they're not your customers, no problem. Part two, what do you ask and how do you get valuable information? A bit more challenging. So again, you mentioned asking why questions, open-ended questions. And I'm also going to give another thing probably to try not to do, which is asking leading questions. And my guess is you know what a leading question is. And that was a leading question that I just gave you. You kind of are setting the first few breadcrumbs out there. I think what you want to ask are open-ended questions that lead to, how do you see this product improving your life? Do you see yourself buying this product? Those kinds of things. And that is my 101. I probably had more to say, but let's go with that as we get rolling here today. So Alex, as we do on Entrepreneurship 101, 3 topics, 2 different perspectives, probably not going to be controversial, but you may have a different version of what you would like to share. So I'm going to turn it over to you, back to you. What questions do you think you should ask potential customers if you're working on some customer discovery, trying to expand a business or start a business? What do you think you should be asking potential customers? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex for his 101 seconds. They start for you right now.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. So, touching on your potential customers, you want to first, it's hard to even find them. Just like the second part of that question is, how do you find your potential customers? The question, I mean, they could be anywhere. I mean, if your business is related to high school students, for example, SAT prep, or if we go down that route, I mean, where is your audience? Are you going to the clubs? Are you going to the football games? Are you going to the volunteering sessions? I mean, it's hard to find where your potential customers are to even start asking questions. Or do you start by asking the parents? Because maybe the parents are enforcing the SAT prep, or they're the ones paying for it, or maybe they have to make their children knowledgeable about the purpose of the SAT and make them want or pay for the service. Or it just goes around that route of just how do you find your potential customers, and then that's just the first. That's the first battle. Now the second battle is just what to ask those questions, or ask those why questions, because those why questions will make you dive deep and answer like the why. Basically, I mean, you'll see the emotional connections or the impulsive decisions. They really make what a customer buys and what they really want to see. And especially, you'll find out with those why questions what their problem is, and then if you know their problem, and if you have a group of people that keep expressing this type of problem or this situation, it's great to have this community, this tight knit community, and a solution that is authentic, I would say, and yeah, very authentic.
Good. All right. Thanks, Alex. So you want to tell people how they can find more of this if they want to participate? You want to give a call to action quickly?
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening. This is the first time we're actually live on Entra, so I appreciate you guys tuning in. We also have a YouTube channel, the Abington Launchbox. So if you could subscribe, that would be great. We're always looking for guests too. So if you know someone that would be a good candidate, or if you want to be on the podcast, please just contact us at abington.launchbox.psu.edu. And thank you again.
Good. Thanks, Alex. So I'm going to kick it over to you with topic number 2 for the day, which is about funding. And just general question, what are your thoughts on how to fund a business? Anything, bootstrapping, grants, winning competitions. What are your general thoughts on how do you think, what are your recommendations or thoughts on how a business should be funded? I'm going to give you 101 seconds starting now.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not an expert on funding the business. I mean, I'm still even on the ideation stage, I would say, even before funding. So I'm not even thinking of funding, I would say. But founders or entrepreneurs should be thinking of founders. And I think that's where I'm maybe going wrong, not thinking of funding in advance. But I think a lot of founders would actually bootstrap their ideas. Like I guarantee you, most 99% of people would bootstrap their ideas. But sometimes people don't have enough capital, or if they risk that much capital, they might not make them go buy. So it's very risky to bootstrap. But if you have the capital, I would definitely bootstrap. But for students, for me, for example, it could be hard for bootstrapping because you're set to a limited income, and it's very high risk but high reward in that sense. So maybe if you want to go bootstrapping, maybe have a set income. But I mean, you don't have to listen to me. I mean, I'm just saying what I think. But grants are a good thing too. Like for example, competitions. There's a lot of opportunities for students to receive funding and grants through competitions or applying to their local municipal authority or whatever. So that's another great way. Grants you don't have to pay for. They want to support you in your business any way possible, especially students. And it's a great time for students because that's the best time to be an entrepreneur, I would say, is when you're a student, because you have the chance to fail. Like we said, winnings from competitions. If you compete, it can show you valid that people believe in your idea too.
All right, good. Right on 101. So I will take my stab at this, and I'll also start my 101 now, but I'm also not an expert at this, and I have plenty of biases. So one, I tend to think of things from two, I guess, spheres, right? There's a sphere for a small business startup where primarily you're looking to start a business that's going to fund yourself and maybe a few employees, but probably not going to scale into something where you have numerous locations and lots of different growth potential. That I see very differently than an entrepreneurial endeavor that is really built to scale from the start. And because of that, I tend to think about doing things with as little cash out as possible. So testing your hypothesis early and at a small level so that you can learn and build on that success. Probably doesn't work as well if you're doing something that you want to scale up quickly. It's kind of a slow organic growth. So that's a bias I tend to have. I also have another challenge, which is I don't really like the word bootstrap. I think it has some history and connection to some things that are not all the best. And I'm not going to dive into that obviously in 101 seconds. So you can go look up some of the origins of bootstrapping and where those terms and ideas came from. I prefer, I guess, lean is better, but still, basically, you're just being as efficient as possible in the early stages of your business. I agree with that. Grants are something that happen. They exist. They're rare, but things like Small Business Innovation Research grants are grants funded by the federal government for innovation, particularly commercialization of new technology. And that's my 101 seconds, but maybe that's something we should be talking about more, is some of the grant programs that do exist, like the Small Business Innovation Research grants as well. And with that, we're going to get down to topic 3. But before we do that, let's just do one final reminder. Where do you find some of our podcasts? YouTube is one of the outlets. We can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and now we're going to be recording live on the Entre platform. ENTRE is the platform. You can find it anywhere. It is a mobile app. It is a website, and it's a social media platform for entrepreneurs, and that's why we're there. So with that, I am going to get us over to our third topic, and I'll turn it back over to you, Alex. I guess you'll ask me so that I can give you the final word for the day.
Well, thank you. So we're going to come down to our final topic. So we went to funding. We spoke a little bit about funding. So the last topic we have is, do you need a tech, or not even a technical founder? Do you need a co-founder, or do you think the solo entrepreneurship route is suitable for students and others entrepreneurs?
All right. So I've got 101 seconds, and I'm going to take a similar framework to how I looked at the funding for this. Small business startup, I think co-founder probably not as important. An entrepreneurial endeavor that is, again, built to scale from the start, at least that's how one of the ways I differentiate them. I could be completely wrong. Just my opinion. That's what we do here on Entrepreneurship 101, is share our personal perspective. But the point is, I think, depending on your orientation, are you looking to build a small business that's going to remain in your local community and serve people in your basically your zip code? Not that there's anything wrong with that. I think that's a great thing to do. And quite honestly, if I were starting a business, that's the direction I would go, because that's what I prefer. I would also do it solo. I think particularly when you're starting a business like that from the start, co-founders can make things a bit more complicated with splitting up the investments, splitting up the revenue, splitting up the responsibilities is a challenge. And starting a business is really hard anyway. So I would not say I would do the business by myself. I would want team members, whether they're employees, freelancers, or the such. I would not want to do a business completely by myself. If I was looking to scale from the start, I think I would be looking for some co-founders, probably plural, people that can help with the pitching to investors. That's not my strength, not the thing that I would be good at. And I don't want to be the thing that holds my business back from being able to scale. So in the type of business where I'm looking to scale up, I would definitely be looking for co-founders to help me along that way. That's 101 for me already. Goes quickly. So again, if you want to share your opinions and get your thoughts out there, join us. But with that, last topic, last response of the day, always the final word goes to Alex. He's our producer. He's a student at Penn State Abington. We value his time, his energy, and his opinions. And Alex, let's get your 101 seconds. What are your opinions on, do you need to find a co-founder when starting a business? You got 101 seconds starting now.
Yeah, I liked how you touched on the co-founder about scaling your business. I mean, not a lot of us don't want to do business but by ourselves, because it can be a scary up and down journey, and I totally understand that. And I think you had a good point there, like I just mentioned, that if you want to scale your business, it might be a good idea to have another co-founder that can help with you with your weaknesses, because you only have so many strengths and so many weaknesses. So we need someone to balance that out and help with those weaknesses. But with the co-founder, I mean, if you're more business oriented and you want to find, or you found an idea in a more technological space, maybe it wouldn't hurt to have someone that's more tech savvy as your co-founder. I mean, they'll help you in the long run. They'll be there for you. They can understand what's going on, what's going wrong, but you can handle the more business side and they can handle the more technical side. So you can split up the work, because in the beginning it'll be straining, a lot of work, I would say. But you guys can both make those key decisions. But you could see some little white space there. Like sometimes it could get a little hairy going back and forth, because sometimes co-founders, even though they have the same like-mindedness, they might disagree on topics and key decisions, and might set them apart or constrain their relationship or their work relationship. Also, like a co-founder would be great because you can divvy up the responsibility, like I said. But I mentioned that problems can arise, um, work relationships can be broken, and that could just be a domino effect.
All right, good. Thanks, Alex. We appreciate your opinions. And I'll give, as always, the final wrap up. The final word goes to you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Peter. I appreciate your feedback and your feedback on the topics. And thank you guys for listening for the first time on Entra. We'll be doing this every Friday from now on at 12:15. And don't forget, we're also on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you can get a podcast, we're on. And thank you guys for listening.